Hi everybody, sorry for the delay. We had a minor crisis that cropped up at the last second. Let me get Steve and Ken back on the line. This is ground control to Major Tom. Alright.
Communication terminated.
Yo. Okay. Let me try Ken. Earth to Ken.
Present.
Okay, let me get Steve. I tried to call it disconnect. Let me see if I can get him. We had a minor crisis here, so okay, trouble. I got to merge it when it comes through. So sorry, everybody. Technical difficulties.
I'm here.
Okay, let me merge. We're going for the merge, man. This is ground control to Steve. Ground control to Ken. Come in. Over.
Roger.
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 I had a last second emergency. The good news is we were able to tourniquet the bleeding, and so the patient should probably survive. All right, let me move this back here where everybody can.
Good to know.
All right, because of course. All right, everybody. Well, hello. Hope you guys enjoyed all that YouTube safe movie that came from free YouTube. I do miss
they were
the
loving
old
it.
ways. I do love Peter Stormare and Constantine. I do miss the old names. I'm like, I do miss the old way, but at least we know we won't get popped with this because I got the music for free from YouTube. And,
It was like Twilight Zone light.
yeah, well, I'm running with what I got. Hey, I've got $22 in that in that YouTube account already.
Don't buy any paint. Garfield
So-
says, minor crisis. Another shelf fell down.
Nah, this was of an administrative matter. It's no big. I mean, and nobody cares. It's just household finance crap. But
It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all
yeah.
right.
Anyway. So, guys, what I thought we would talk about tonight, and this is why we let Steve hang out with us because he's the car guy.
And the only reason.
I'm the airplane guy, and Ken's the techie. So.
Ken's the deck swabby? Is that what you said?
There you go. Arg. So
Army swabbies.
they call them swabbies because they swab the deck.
Caribbean guy.
So Steve and I were actually texting about this earlier. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I can't have any cough medicine because I got to drive later. I had planned to get, blind, stinking drunk in front of everybody tonight, but I have errands to run. So anyway,
That's what Uber's for.
yeah. So anyway, so what happens is I'm watching some videos today, as I'm prone to do, and I'm listening to, and this is the links I sent you, Steve, and this guy deals in exotic cars and collectibles, and he actually made a distinction I wasn't familiar with: exotic versus collectible, two different things. And so anyway, a bunch of the cars he was rattling off that he thought were garbage, I was like, wait a minute, everybody and their brother makes models of these cars. They're super famous, like the Countach and the and some of the others, and he's just bashing these things about all their problems and everything. And I just remember what Steve said about, the Ferrari was a piece of junk 20 years ago. It's a piece of junk now. So I thought we would take a look at, first we're going to start off with cars, then we're going to move into some Korean War aircraft because we're doing the Korea build. So, while I'm doing this, I think I'll just turn the camera off, save a little bandwidth here. So we've got, in no particular order.
You got your haircut, didn't you?
I did. Actually, I got them all cut.
There you go.
Okay. This is the car that he absolutely trashed the most. And Tamiya makes a model of it. And this is, he said this isn't really, he didn't consider it so much as an exotic car as a collectible car, but the Jaguar XJ220. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have built this kit. If it's Tamiya, I'm sure it goes together very nicely. But he was just talking about how the thing sounds like it's got a lawnmower in the back, and it, it just, he went to pick his girlfriend up, and he said, well, I think it was in one of these, or it might have been the Countach. I think it was this thing. And he said he hit the gas and the radio shot out.
Out of the dashboard.
Yeah. And he said that apparently Jag had some really bad quality control issues. And I'm like, yeah, but you got flying radios. But
pick up the slack. Break out the rum.
It's funny she mentioned that. I was about to pour myself a really stiff rum. I got the last of my Mount Gay rum, and I was like, and there were only 2 Cokes left. She said I could have one to make my Cuba Libre. So eyedropper of Coca-Cola and a water glass full of rum. But then we realized I have to go out and get dinner when we're done. So oh well. By the way, Ian Atkinson, if you're watching, it was great seeing you over at Hurricane Hobby. So so Steve, you're the car guy. First off, have you ever built this kit, or have any of the Glue Troopers? You have.
Yep.
Okay,
it's a nice kit.
It's a nice kit. Okay.
Nice kit, goes together well. Looks nice when it's done. Everything fits. Unlike the real car.
Yeah, because it's an awesome looking car.
It is.
When you say Jaguar, this is not what I visualize. Of course, I always think like the XKE, but apparently the real car is we're talking way past lemon. I mean.
Well, you have to understand, when the real car was designed, it was designed one way, and then when they made it, it became a compromise.
Because that always works out well.
They were supposed to have a bigger motor. They put a smaller motor. It was supposed to have different things that the car was going to be able to do. It was way more expensive than they initially announced it was going to be. And it had a lot of quality issues because at that time, most of the cars coming out of the UK, a lot of bad issues.
So
I mean, it's a beautiful car. They're very collectible as real cars today because didn't make that many of them.
And apparently there was a reason why. Now these cars run. He was saying these cars run about $200,000 to $300,000, even though.
Yeah.
And
they had a racing series.
Really?
Like they had, remember they had the International Race of Champions years ago where they started out with Porsches. They did that with these cars to try to hype them. And it really wasn't a successful series, but you had guys driving around the track in these $300,000 cars banging into each other.
That was sort of the European version of win on Sunday, sell on Monday.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a beautiful looking car. If you've ever seen one, they're absolutely gorgeous. But like Sarah
Jane said, won its class at Le Mans and then disqualified over exhaust irregularities.
Who do they think they are, Volkswagen?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Okay, so beautiful kit, beautiful car, piece of junk to drive.
Yeah.
Next up is everybody and their brother. When I went to look for the Maserati Bora, just about everyone who's ever made a kit model car makes the Bora. So enlighten us to why this car is, it looks cool, which I understand for car builders, model builders, but the actual car, any good?
No.
I've never heard someone say good things about a Maserati, including a couple of Maserati owners I know.
Anything that has a Maserati logo on it is junk.
Well, my understanding is Maserati is an Italian word that means miserable.
Yeah.
A miserati. We had a captain. We had a captain I flew with at Mesa who he loved Maseratis, but he hated Maseratis. He always bought one. He always had one, and he just badmouthed them. No, and I'm like, why do you have? He goes, you just park it in the garage and listen to it leak money. And I'm like, why do you have them? Oh God, I love them.
sounds like a boat.
It sounds like an abusive girlfriend.
Meanwhile, they, Maserati in the 80s decided that they were going to try and go main market and not go exotic cars.
I remember,
They came out with this car called the Biturbo.
Mm-hmm.
It had 2 turbos. This thing almost put them out of business and made them leave the American market for over 20 years because it was such garbage.
Oh, God. Well, but you got to give them credit for styling. That's a beautiful looking car.
The guys from Top Gear, they did an episode where each one of them were given so much money and they bought an exotic car.
Uh-huh.
And I think James got a Bora. And they had to drive from one place to the other.
I'm sure that ended well.
The thing this broke, that broke. It was just like, it was a nightmare.
Tom Fox says Jaguars are really a parts subscription service in disguise.
They are. They are. If you take Jaguar, in the 50s, they were known for the X120 and 150, and then they came out with the XKE in the early 60s, which Enzo Ferrari actually called the most beautiful car he had ever seen.
Wow.
And XKE is a beautiful car.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very competent, but it had a lot of bugs, and it tended to rust. And they sold a lot of them, and people still buy them, and they restore them, but it's a lot of work to restore an XKE.
Well, the joke that I just made up in my head is on an XKE, maintenance is a constant process of restoration. The restoration never ends.
Never ends.
What was that Mad Men? The guy tried to commit suicide by carbon monoxide, and he had a brand new Jaguar, and he couldn't get it to start.
Yeah. Well, because they had the Lucas Lord of Darkness electrical system.
Yeah. So call the suicide prevention hotline or just buy a Jaguar. But
Sarah Jane says Clarkson got the Bora.
Oh, it's Clarkson got the Bora. But you were.
I remember that, but it was a nightmare.
Okay. Well, that explains it. But I can see why a model company would want to make it because it's an attractive car. If I'm a kid in a store and I'm a car kid, I see that. I got to have that. It looks great.
Yes, Lance. XKE rust. The body's aluminum. Underneath isn't.
Nah. You have a beautiful shell with a dead inside. It's dead inside. Speaking of the XKE, by the way, guys, this is the same kit. This is the Aurora kit that Monogram got when they got the molds, and then Revell, of course, the merger, so it became Revell Monogram. I do love that they kept the box art, but you notice that one of them is speedboat racing, the other is F-102 jet fighters, and I'm like, these guys knew how to get young boys to be interested. Have fighter pilots and boat race boat drivers, driving the XKE, and now,
I have these 2 kits.
Now, what do you think of them as a kit?
They were a little bit fiddly for an Aurora kit. There was a lot of fit and finish issues, but it built up into a nice kit. Now, the XKE that Revell has now, that's an all-new mold.
Oh, okay.
That's
all right.
That's not the same mold. The one they have now is an all-new mold, and the one they have now is really nice. It's a nice kit. Okay,
well, the XK was it? Did we say it was Jaguar that popularized disc brakes at Le Mans?
Yes, yes. When they won Le Mans with the D-Type, they had disc brakes.
Can you kind of tell a story on that real quick?
Excuse me?
Can you tell the story on that real quick?
Yeah, well, disc brakes were invented in the early 19th century. In the early 20th century, in the early 1900s, and they just were not popularized on cars. And then Jaguar used them in their race cars, and when they won Le Mans, which had disc brakes, it kind of awakened everybody to, hey, these things work much better. And then they started putting them on cars, and they put them on more cars, and then in the 60s and 70s, they started to become popular, and now they're on all cars.
Okay.
Because They're much simpler and they're much better.
There was drum brakes before that, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Ian.
There's a lot of cars now that when people restore them, we talk about collectible cars.
Yeah.
They have disc brake conversion kits.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
They take the drum brakes off and they put disc brakes on.
Well, Malibu had drums and backing discs up front, and it was
right. But then they went to all-wheel discs.
Yeah.
And now you can get conversion kits.
When I had my 43 Willis, it had the standard 1943 drum brakes on it, and you'd mash those brakes, and you could feel them just sort of like, man, there is not a lot of stopping these things.
My wife had a Firebird. It was gorgeous.
What year?
And it was like a 97.
Okay.
And it had front disc brakes and rear drums. This thing would not stop to save its life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to go back and had to go to a guy who had a hot rod shop and had him put discs in the rears, and then the car was fine.
I drove my mom's 67 Cadillac Calais, which I absolutely loved. 100 miles an hour down a washboard dirt road, and you could serve hot tea. But I skidded through more than one intersection when the road was wet. Just leaned on the brakes, and it was like you're on ice.
Yeah.
And well, I'm glad the new mold is good, though. Everybody's commenting and everybody's saying that the new mold is good, what you just said. So that's nice to know.
The new kit is really nice. It really is.
And the XKE, as my understanding, although very famous and very sought after car, always had, which of course this will shock no one, always had a reputation as very maintenance intensive.
Yeah.
Trey said my 68 Fairlane's brakes were more of a slow down suggestion.
You ever wonder how we survived our teen years, never mind our youth, when our parents would just put us on basically a knapsack that hung over the front seat of a car with no seat belts and a glass window?
What about when you used to sleep up in the package tray in the back window?
Oh, yeah, you'd sleep on the, whatever you call that, the valance or whatever it is, the back deck. Yeah, man, that's how you sunned yourself.
Yeah, they ever stopped short, you would have went through the windshield like a projectile.
Yeah. You'd have been in the front seat for sure.
Well, I think Jeff Foxworthy did a joke about, safety today. He goes, I remember as a kid going all the way from Atlanta all the way to Tennessee or whatever on the back deck under the rear window.
Yeah.
Hey, that was. I thought that was shaped like that so you could stow the baby up there.
I did that once when I was a kid.
Who didn't? Heck, Ken, I went to school in the back of an open pickup truck, and I loved it. It was like a big hayride. My brother was $10.
Well, let me put it this way: we all learned what ABS was before there was ABS because we would have to pump the brakes sometimes 70 times to get the thing to stop.
That's what Steve Jarvis just said. He said, we learned the importance of pumping the brakes.
Yeah, baby. Well, the next one is...
Frank Sabo says, Mom's arm would stop you.
My sister did that. She was... My sister did that. I was a passenger in her Ford Taurus going down I-10. And the car in front of us stopped. She got on the brakes real hard. And, of course, it was like an 80s vintage Ford Taurus or 90s. But she put her arm... She weighs like 100 pounds soaking wet. And I'm like, even back then, I was a good 240, 250. And she just puts her arm in front of me like, yeah, Patty, that's going to help.
See, we have a Pantera.
My personal favorite. I don't know why. Saw one as a kid, fell in love with it. It's just that simple. Never sat in one. Here they're a pain in the ass to drive. But they got a Ford engine, so you can get parts.
Yes, they do. And it had a good Ford engine. I had a friend of mine.
What?
Yep, I had a friend of mine, the Cleveland 351. I had a friend of mine who worked at a Lincoln Mercury dealer because they imported them through Lincoln Mercury.
Right.
And they were horsepower restricted because of federal laws and this and that. When they would bring the cars in from Europe, they would go to a dealer that was sort of like the distribution hub.
Mm-hmm.
They would get the cars and they would take the heads off of them because they had very thick head gaskets which reduced the compression, and they'd change the head gaskets and put thin ones on it would boost the horsepower like 40 horsepower.
Right. Me loves a good cheat.
My friend had one of those. We actually drove from Maryland down to somewhere in Tennessee or whatever to pick it up. We put it on a car carrier trailer, and we drove it back. And I got to sit in it, and you forget about your left leg. The wheel was there. You had to drive kind of like sideways.
Steve was telling me about that.
The right-hand side.
The front wheel, inside wheel arches, they protrude into the passenger compartment.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem with the car was if you lived in an area where you had severe winters and you took the car out, they would rust where they seamed into the rest of the body. And they were a stressed part of the front end because that's where the struts mounted to.
Okay.
So you'd have to replace the front wheel arching inside because otherwise they'd rust through and the whole suspension would collapse.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah. Now, I know people who have them and have had them, and, they treated them like they're trailer queens, but they are really nice cars. They really are. Hey, Elvis had one.
Yeah.
He actually shot it because it wouldn't start one night.
Because that was Elvis's cure for everything. Buy another, shoot this one, buy another one.
That's right.
You pull the new car up into the driveway and you show it the old car and you look at it and go, now, if you don't behave, that's going to be you.
That could happen to you.
Well, has anybody built the kit?
Not many people made a kit of the Pantera.
No, I was kind of surprised. There were a few, but not as many as I thought. And I don't think I've ever built an Airfix model car. But if they're like a lot of their other kits, they should be pretty good.
I built the James Bond 007 Aston Martin that they came out with, which I built it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, that is the primo kit of the DB5 from Goldfinger.
Yep.
Everything worked. Everything. It was highly detailed. I don't know why they've never come out with it again. And I did ask the product guy at Airfix one year at Toy Fair, why didn't you reintroduce this kit with all of the times it's been in the later James Bond movies? And he didn't have an answer for it.
Yeah. I think it could be generational. Trey's saying they eat starters. What eats starters?
This is the car that Tim Horton died in.
Really?
Tim Horton killed himself in a Pantera.
Huh.
Who's that?
Tim Horton's a guy that was a hockey player in Canada, and it was Tim Horton's the coffee and donut shop place.
I didn't know that. No, I won't be able to join my Timmy's without thinking about that.
I think they went to a game in Buffalo, and he chose to drive instead of taking the team bus. And he was driving back, and he had an accident and got killed in his Pantera.
Huh. Well,
yeah.
That happened to Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens. I mean, was it Richie or Buddy that got who flipped the coin with Waylon Jennings to who goes in the Bonanza?
Yeah.
I forget which one. And one of them flipped a coin with Waylon Jennings, and they said that the rest of his life, he lived down. He goes, I hope you freeze your butt off in that old bus. Well, I hope your plane crashes, and it did. Of course, he goes, I had to live with that the rest of my life. That was the last thing I said to Buddy Holly or whoever one of the three.
Just think of the promotional opportunities for Tim Hortons. They could sell this kit at Christmas time. Jeez,
dude. This is why we don't put New Yorkers in charge of the advertising. I have to admit though, I'm not the biggest car builder out there, but if I saw this, I kind of like that paint scheme. I mean, they definitely want you to know it's a Pantera, but I think if I saw that kit, I'd probably pick it up. I mean, that car just it sings to me.
Sluggo, you're behind the curve. We already said it's Tim Hortons.
Keep up.
Yeah, you got to keep up here. You got to pay attention. Pay attention.
You didn't know that we were checking to see if you were keeping up. That's right. We pay attention.
There you go. Somebody put up Shaggy Buds puts up the press release.
Oh my God. Oh, the Volvo. Oh, if you've been driving a Volvo, maybe it'd still be with us. Oh, what was that old joke? If Teddy, you remember the Volkswagen that they drive in the water and it floats? That led to that joke.
If Kennedy drove a Volkswagen,
he'd be president today.
Well, you ever watch Mystery Science Theater 3000?
On occasion.
I was watching it one time with my son, and they had on Bride of the Monster, the Bela Lugosi movie where he has the house with the laboratory in the swamp.
Uh-huh.
And he kidnaps this cop's girlfriend, and they go out to get him, and they're driving, and you see a shot from like a camera looking back at the front wheel. And you hear the guy say, and Senator Kennedy's car approaches the bridge.
Okay. Now, this is the only I thought AMT, making being a primarily car model, doing a lot of car models, would have had all kinds of exotics. These are the only ones they could find.
They didn't do a lot of exotics. They did mostly, muscle cars and that kind of stuff.
And these don't look particularly... they're 124, 125, but...
Revell did a lot of these kind of sets with exotic cars.
And there's nothing really wrong with these kits in the picture. They just look a little plain.
Yeah, well, because...
I don't know if anybody's ever built one. Countach looks pretty good. The Diablo, little
the Viper
bland.
looks good.
Yeah.
The Diablo looks too small. It just looks sort of out of,
I hate to say this like this because I'm sure there's nothing wrong with the kit, but the Diablo looks kind of toyish.
Yes, it does.
But
now I bought one that Revell made that was all Porsches because I couldn't I wanted a kit of the 914 Porsche. I couldn't find one. And every one that I found, they wanted ridiculous amount of money. Up pops this kit, this set, that has a 914, and it's got two 911s in, and it was a third the price of just getting the 914 kit.
There you go. Go figure. It's just,
Yeah.
Raymond, you're right. Steve was mentioning earlier the original 007 Aston Martin is a rare kit now. And if you get a chance, if you find a complete one, I'd grab it if it's within your budget to do so.
You have the DB5, and then you have the Toyota 2000 GT from You Only Live Twice, which Airfix also did that they never reintroduced. Those are rare kits.
Yeah. 80s cars. Actually, Slugo, 70s cars are considered the worst. In fact, what's his name? Ed of Ed's Auto Review, the Belgian guy, who I love his channel. He's saying he actually did a 4-part series on the Malaise era, which is primarily the 70s. And as far as I'm concerned, the trouble and when did the catalytic converter come in?
It's like in the 70s.
Okay.
Like in the
to me,
mid-70s.
the 5-mile-an-hour bumper and the catalytic converter were the beginning of the downhill slide in the appearance and performance of cars. That being said, though, the quality of American cars, the fit and finish, was already going downhill by 1970, 71. And I don't know. It's like they had an episode. You remember the old Private Eye show, Simon and Simon?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, my brother and I loved that show, and we used to call each other Rick and AJ. Anyway, it ain't that funny.
Okay.
It ain't that funny.
We'll go with that.
Anyway, as I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by somebody's cackling.
We'll interrupt again too if you like.
It's your job. If you don't, you won't get a word in edgewise. But they had an episode, a really good one, called what did I just do? Never mind.
Simon and Simon.
Yeah, no. I clicked the button here and my screen disappeared. I just accidentally... Okay, it's back. Anyway, they had an episode called Whoever Killed the 60s. And it's a flashback episode to when they were teenagers. The guys were young enough then that with makeup they could play themselves as teenagers. Rick had just gotten back from Vietnam, from being a Marine in Vietnam, and AJ was like a high school senior. Anyway, and it played into a current case. And they kept playing like California Dreamin' in the background and stuff. But that episode made me think, when I was a kid, I don't know why, the silly stuff you remember when you're from your childhood. I remember being in the back of the mom's station wagon when the calendar rolled over to 1970. And mind you, I'm 9 years old, right? But in my mind, I'm thinking the 60s were so yesterday. Now we live in 1970. We live in the future. This is modern times because it's 1970. And
I knew somebody who had a Viper. There's a dealership in New Hampshire, I think it is, just across the border from Massachusetts.
Yes, Ken, we know where New Hampshire is. The whole state's just across the border from Massachusetts. It ain't that big.
True. But there was a dealership there in a real small town, and they sold more Vipers from that dealership than any other dealership in the entire country. They had 4 or 5 Vipers sitting out on the lot. They sold so many of these things. I have no idea why they were so popular, but they sold a bunch of them.
Ken,
because they were fast.
Look at them. That's why they're popular.
I knew a guy who had one. He said that thing was a beast.
I've heard they are.
Meanwhile,
for once, they finally made an American sports car besides the Corvette and the Hellcat that actually lived up to its looks.
We went out to Las Vegas for CES one year, and me and this kid he was like a product guy. He was a car guy too. We're driving in the cab from the airport, and they have these places that rent exotic cars.
Yeah.
And we see this Viper there. So I said to him, "Let's see how much they want to rent this thing." And he goes, "Yeah." All right. So we go in, we talk to the guy. It was $350 a day to rent the car. It was $400 a day for the insurance. So we said to the guy, "Here's American Express card, write it up. We want the car." Let me tell you. First of all, I thought we were going to have to buy him a new set of rear tires by the time we brought the car back.
That's okay. You'd already paid for it.
We took this thing. I took this thing out on the highway going to Utah. This thing saw 160 miles an hour like it was 55. And I'm driving this thing and going, if we hit a bug, we're dead. It was unbelievably fast. But the problem was when you got finished driving it at the end of the day, you felt like somebody beat you up. Because it was not like driving a luxury car. It was a sports car.
Oh, my little Mustang has a sports car suspension on it. You drive it very long, you feel it. No, we don't have Lottas over here, Trace, but I hear somebody I know a guy's got a good deal on a Trevon.
Yeah. Well, the dealer, when I lived in South Jersey, if you sold a Viper, you had to have a mechanic who was trained at the factory in Detroit to work on it. And it was $5,000 to have the mechanic trained. So he had a really good customer, and this guy wanted a Viper. And he wanted the GTS Coupe, which was the blue one with the white stripes that they had at the Indy 500 as the base car.
Mm-hmm.
This guy paid the $5,000 to send his mechanic to school and ordered a Viper.
Mm-hmm.
This guy gets the car. He gets in the car, okay, he drives it down the road. He made it 3 miles down the road and put the car on its roof.
What happened?
Did he keep it?
No, the insurance company did.
Oh, they took it.
Didn't last long, did it? Well, never. It's like they say, never buy more airplane or more car. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you have the skill.
Yep.
Well,
that's like people who buy Porsches. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they have Porsche experience and racing schools, because they recommend that you go to the school before you take delivery of the car, which makes all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to know how to drive it.
Well,
not the kind of thing you want to learn while you're,
You don't want to learn at 120 miles an hour. Yeah.
This is a beautiful kit, this Ferrari Berlinetta.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to ask you about the car and the kit.
And the car was, basically, it was a race car, which they didn't make, versions of for the street. It's a beautiful kit. It's an impractical car for the street. I mean, the maintenance on the thing was unbelievable. I mean, just to get them to the early Ferraris of this era, well, I wouldn't say early, but they were not made to be driven on the street. They were basically race cars. Ferrari made these cars to sell, so he had money to make race cars. I mean, they're beautiful cars, but they're just not the kind of car you hop in to go down to Walmart.
Sarah Jane made a comment about she got the Trabant that had the speedometer in it. I heard somebody make a comment the other day that I thought was hilarious. It's a perfect metaphor. He goes, "You want to know the difference between socialism and capitalism? The East German Trabant and the West German BMW." And I thought, that's not a half bad way to explain the difference between the two.
I mean, I laughed like hell when the Pierce Brosnan, I think it was Goldeneye, when he goes to St. Petersburg and the CIA guy picks him up, who's Joe Don Baker.
Oh yeah, and the little Beamer in a Boxster.
And he had a Trabant.
Oh, I was thinking at the end where he's in Cuba and he's somehow, or Miami or somewhere, and I'm like, he really filled up a Boxster.
Well, he had the Trabant, and he's trying to get it started, and he couldn't get it started. He takes a sledgehammer and hits it and goes, "There you go."
Oh, yeah. The Trebby. But a lot of former East Germans, they speak very fondly about the Trebby, and I understand why. The same reason we all speak fondly of our early jalopies, but I tell you what, one ride in a Cadillac and you never go back.
She bought her in Romania, her Trabant in Romania in 1990 for £5.
Yes, but back in 1990, £5 was worth £25 today. So
And you got overcharged back then.
Cost twice that to ship it home. The 70 Hemi Cuda. I actually knew somebody had one of those. Gorgeous car. And sadly, he fell, and this is in the 70s, by the way. He fell asleep at a wheel and drove it off the road and totaled it.
You want to read or me?
What?
Raymond says you can get the Trabant up to 100 miles an hour if you drive it off a cliff.
I was going to say, toss it out of an airplane.
No, the molds for the Aurora car kits weren't cut in Europe.
They're cut in the U.S. Aurora had it actually, I think, was it what's the name of that company that you did cut a lot of their molds for them?
They were out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they would make the patterns and do the engineering drawings. And make no mistake, you look at the engineering drawing for a kit model, and it's like the engineering drawing for the real car. It's got to have all the dimensions and everything. But they had contractor. I don't know of any company except maybe Tamiya that actually cuts its own molds.
Whatchamacallit, Trumpeter.
Okay, well, and China, that doesn't shock me.
There's a Trumpeter video, which I watched one night, and I found out Trumpeter is a subsidiary of a Chinese electronics company.
Oh, okay.
Which I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so part of the factory is the model kit thing. They had a room that must have had 50 CNC machines cutting molds. I couldn't believe it when I saw that.
Oh, wait a minute. I know somebody in the Ukraine, because they put a video online. One of the Ukrainian companies cuts their own molds. One of the big ones. Crap, I forgot which one it was. By the way, yeah, the Revell makes a Trabant is more expensive. I bet you the model of the Trabant's more expensive than the real car.
Probably works better than the real car, too.
It'd be hard not to. Now, I know your love affair with Fujimi, and when I saw this Aventador by Fujimi, which actually doesn't seem to have that many parts, all things considered, although it does have some small ones.
Because they never have motors.
Ah.
They're basically, most of them are curbside models with no motor.
Okay. That doesn't bother me because I don't tend to display my models of the engine exposed, so that would be more for me. Now, the Aventador is an exotic car. It's not a collectible because they're still new, but I've actually heard some pretty good things about it. I don't know if it deserves them or not, but
What, the Aventador?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no. The new Lambos are great cars. They really are. I mean, they do everything that you expect it to do.
Well, a model like this, to me, because the model looks pretty straightforward, I would say that 99% of your model is the paint job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm looking at this picture here with the parts trees laid out.
Yeah.
I don't see any engine parts.
No, I noticed that. I was going to ask, because I knew you said the Fujimi often had a lot of fiddly parts, and the ones I built did. But this one didn't seem to have that many. I don't know if it's just a, change in philosophy or the car just didn't require them.
An engine?
No, there's no engine.
No, there's no engine.
Like you said, they're curbside.
Isn't engine under the rear glass on the real one?
Well, Sarah Jane says Fujimi's either basic or fiddly with lots of parts. That's actually what I was going to ask you. I guess it's one of the, like an IMC kit or something.
Yeah.
Because I have heard you complain more about IMC and their fiddly parts.
Oh, God.
I gotta go find one and build it just so I can, be part of the club.
If you're going to sit down and do an IMC kit, you better have a lot of time to do it and not be up against a deadline, because it will torture you at every step.
Well, I'd say the same thing about the Tamiya Mustang P51 that I'm building, except that it's not torture. It's just really, really complicated. And then I found out half the crap I put in there I didn't even need. And the gun trays and everything else. Like, oh, wait a minute. This is only if you're going to display the guns. Otherwise, you just leave them out. And so one wing has a gun tray and all the guns, and one wing doesn't. But I got the wings on it today. I was actually just fitting them. I was just fitting it. And it fit so snug, I was afraid to try and take it off. So I screw that. I just started putting glue beads and, let that ultra thin get in there. But oh my God, that P80 got. Oh, you know what? We'll talk about that later. I got some pictures, but
Sluggo, I don't know if it'd take a 3D resin engine, because you'd have to see if in the rear compartment where the rear suspension is, if there's anywhere to mount an engine.
Well, they put one in the real one.
It looks like on the sprue in the upper right hand corner, like the second part in from the top. It looks flipped over, but it looks like it might be where the engine is.
No, that's a wheel well opening.
Yeah.
No. It's next to that. Look to the left of that.
To the left of that. Yeah, that's the interior.
You guys will see in about 20 seconds. I'm kind of zooming in for you a little bit here. But I don't see anything that even resembles engine parts. So,
I think it's just like the top of the engine.
Sarah Jane says top left, you can see the engine top.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm saying.
Because that's just the top, because you can see that through the glass. So they got to make something,
right.
but they don't have an actual engine. If you were going to put a motor in there, like a resin motor, you'd have to bore all that out.
You have to cut that all out, and you'd have to have a way to mount the engine to the suspension.
Which means fabricate, which is just plastic, but you're going to fabricate a mount.
But yeah.
So let me go back to fit the screen here.
Is that a bag of brass laser cut pieces?
I think it is.
Yeah.
And that enough would scare me away. Now, like I said, and you saw it, this guy was really, huh?
Now, Bill Paul, he said, did an accurate miniatures Corvette. I got 3 of them. That's the one I bought in the hobby store in North Carolina, one of them. I put it in the trunk of the car and came back and put a hole in the top of the box.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the other car the guy was really trashing was the Countach. And he was...
Every boy's poster in their bedroom in the 70s.
That was the Lonnie Anderson car of the... But
back then you could get one for $25,000.
Huh.
Yeah.
But he was just, a lot of guys, like, Steve, you're too tall, I'm too fat. Ken, I think you're too tall.
I couldn't fit in it. And the other problem is, have you ever seen people back them up?
No.
Because you're pretty blind in the car, even with the mirrors. What they do is they lift the door up and sit side saddle out on the sill. And look behind the car and turn the wheel. Yeah, I've seen that on so many shows where there were auction shows or, counting cars or Kindig where they were working on one of them. That's how they back them up. Because you can't see behind them.
That is unsatisfactory. Well, nowadays you have a backup camera, but still. But he was just talking about the cars are horribly uncomfortable and apparently a lot of maintenance.
Ton of maintenance. I mean, a lot of these cars, especially the Italian ones, when you have to do service on stuff, it's an engine out service. They have to take the engine out. And then they do it, and then they put it back in.
It's like changing the transmission on a German tank.
Yeah, the Ferraris are like that too.
Yeah.
They raise the whole car, and then they drop the engine. They take out 4 bolts, and the whole engine comes down. You work on it that way.
But are the models any good?
As models, yes. Because you're not going to drive it. But yeah, most of the Countach models, they're very accurate. They're nice.
That reminds me of that what that guy said in the Cannonball Run. The Italian guy got in the car and ripped off the rearview mirror, and he says, "What's up behind me?" I said, "Not my concern."
Driving his Ferrari Daytona Roadster.
Now the question is, you're going to paint this car. What kind of paint are you going to use to get that pearl look to it?
I'm going to use, to me, a pearl white, and then I'm going to clear it.
Pearl white, you going to use rattle can or an airbrush?
Yeah, use rattle can.
Yeah, it's I've seen some really pretty paint jobs with some of these guys. These guys must be polishing them when they're done because they're way too much shine. And but I tell you what, they're more flawless than the paint jobs on the real car. And
some of the paint jobs you see at car shows, you're amazed. And some guys actually use car paint. In an airbrush.
Yeah. I think you're flirting with disaster doing that. That HPI guy stuff. I mean, I've done it. I've used car paint on models, usually large ones. Hell, I used Krylon on my Mercury capsule, but the thing was 1.5 feet tall.
I got the movie wrong. It's Gumball Rally.
Gumball Rally.
Yeah.
Cannonball Rally.
Crowd corrected me. Thank you, sir.
The 55 mile an hour speed limit made folk heroes out of truck drivers and cannonballers.
Yeah.
And
Joe, and what's his name? The guy who wrote the song.
Oh, C.W. Call.
I can't drive 55.
Oh, Sammy Hagar.
Sammy Hagar. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you what. Made bandits out of all of us. The Countach, though, has kind of become a legendary car, but it's the one I hear everyone who's driven one gripe about. And
it's not easy to drive.
But
the power doesn't come on smooth. Your visibility is really hindered.
I think I remember talking about that, about the power delivery wasn't smooth and everything,
and you gotta be pretty small to fit in the car.
This car wouldn't even exist if Enzo hadn't been such a jerk to Lamborghini.
Well, Lamborghini still arguably built the most gorgeous of all of the supercars, and that was the Mirror.
Yeah.
And did you ever see the movie about Lamborghini?
No.
Yeah, there's a movie about him. It was on one of the streaming services. I watched it one night. The one thing he did do, and they were accurate, is when he decided that he was pissed off at Ferrari because he had many Ferraris, and the biggest problem he had with them were the clutches. And he had met Ferrari. He had met Ferrari at an industrial, show. And he went over to him and introduced himself to him, and he said, I have many of your cars, and he says, there's one flaw in these cars. And at that time, Lamborghini was well known for manufacturing tractors.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, if you would collaborate with me, I could solve your clutch problem. And Ferrari looked at him with disdain and said,
as Enzo was prone to do,
just go and play with your tractors. And he said, okay, go play with my tractors. Okay. So he went and decided he was going to build the 350, and he hired the best of the best. And he was very demanding in what he wanted, and they said, we can't do that. And he said, well, you find a way to do it, and they did. Mm-hmm. And when they brought the 350 out, Ferrari didn't know what to do, and it was a successful car. And he was always looking for the next car. Well, he got together with the designer and they designed the Miura. Well, the Miura was really the first supercar.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gorgeous. To this day, they are absolutely gorgeous. And then he followed it up with the Countach.
Mm. Well, he knocked it out of the park, so his companies outlived their owners or their creators.
Well, his problem was the company made heating and air conditioning things, which were their bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
And he ignored the warnings of the unions. And they eventually went on strike, and they just took the company down.
Yeah, that was a brilliant move. So what's the story on this Hasegawa? This is like the only exotic car that Hasegawa made that I could find. I didn't have a lot of time to do research.
A beautiful car.
So what's the story on this thing?
It was made as a race car. Another Ferrari was made as a race car, and he made some for the street. It's definitely not a car you want to drive on the street, but some people did. But
by the way, it's a 135. Oh no, I'm sorry, 135 parts, 124 scale.
Yeah.
What years was this car were its heyday?
Like in the late 50s into the mid 60s.
Okay, because it almost looks like it's got a little Jaguar in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the single headrest and everything, and
it's a beautiful car. I mean, it's very flowing.
Jam says, of course.
So we would have the GT40. Interesting story about the GT40. The GT40 was actually another car that they acquired and then they developed. The car that it was a Lola. And they bought the car, and then they sort of worked on it. But it took them a while. It took them Carroll Shelby to get the GT40 to be the world beater that it was.
Okay.
Because he, took everything they did, and his team said, this is wrong, that's right, and they just changed it. And then they made it a world beater, and it was.
Was that true that when Carroll Shelby took the president of Ford out in the car, he scared the crap out of him?
Yep. That is true.
Good on him.
Great.
I'll turn the camera back on here. I just thought it'd be good to, after talking to that guy, to talk about some of these exotic cars and some of the kits of them that are available, and see if there were either any kits you should stay away from. And I still seem to be a little intimidated by Hasegawa, by the Fujimi kits because of their propensity to be overticked. And then I thought we'd talk about the cars a little bit, because I do so much military and aircraft, and I'm like, we need a little diversity here, a little change things up a little bit. Next week we'll probably be doing sci-fi stuff. The next thing I thought we would talk about is, we got the Korean War build coming up. And we talked about...
We have to let Bill Paul go. Godzilla versus Monster Zero's on Svengoolie.
Oh, wow. So... You gotta go. You gotta do what you gotta do. And, but with the Korean War build coming up, and I was thinking, if it hadn't been for movies like The Bridges of Toko-Ri and TV shows like MASH, people wouldn't have much to equate where that helicopters are concerned in Korea. But and it was...
Wasn't the R5/S51 the go-to helicopter in Korea? That in the Bell?
Yes and no. Okay. The Sikorsky H-19, what made it such a big deal was that... Okay. Well, I tell you what. Let me start at the beginning here. Okay. The Bell, which is called the Bell 47 because it came out in 1947, was already established before the war broke out. And from watching MASH, you could carry a couple of wounded guys, and it was good for observation because of the big bubble. And the Army and everybody were happy with it as what it was. But there was no real helicopter doctrine back then because it was also new. Okay. Then you get the S5. Now, the Air Force and the Navy, this is an Air Force one. The Air Force and the Navy I mean, the Army had them also, but the Air Force and the Navy were the ones that really used them a lot. And you see it's got stretchers also. And like you saw, the Navy used them for rescuing the bridges at Tokori. And they were both, to be honest, kind of underpowered and everything, which you would expect because of early generation. I think one of the reasons the Bell 47 is still in service around the world and the R5 kind of faded into obscurity was the Bell with that bubble just had more general utility, better for observation stuff. Sikorsky went on to bigger helicopters also. In fact, Sikorsky then goes and, they built the Chickasaw, which did see service in Korea. Now, this is the helicopter that changed doctrine. Up until that point, helicopters could be used for rescuing one or two people or going out and spotting artillery or looking for the bag, just general, taxi cabs and they did put guns on them and occasionally use them that way. But then this thing comes out and they go, hey, we can put an entire fire team in this thing, right? Not quite a full squad, but that means if we've got 6 or 8 of these things, we can move a whole platoon at one time. So now we've got the ability to actually move combat troops in some kind of numbers. And that's when they invent what's called vertical envelopment, which basically means flying a helicopter, dropping down, and letting your people out. But from a medical standpoint, this helicopter changed the game for mass units because now you had a helicopter where a medic could give aid and tend to the wounded while in flight instead of just having them. The pilot couldn't do anything on one of the other choppers. He had to fly the chopper. There was no way he could render any aid. So they had to be patched up good and tight. Now you had the ability to have 4 stretchers with a medic actually tending to the wounded en route. So this helicopter really was the one that started out, made the Army start defining helicopter doctrine. And it was very important helicopter. Still a few of them flying today. Well, some of them were converted to turbines. And of course, I'm going to do the helicamper. And this was the first helicamper. And they were used for ag spraying a lot too because they could carry a lot more. And that engine on it, even though it was a kind of an odd arrangement with a big radial engine up front shafted to the transmission going through the cockpit, but that was a bulletproof engine. And the helicopter wasn't without its flaws, as any helicopter is. The one problem this helicopter had that they didn't really conceive of at the time, I always thought it was so cool that the pilot sat up on top. But you notice nobody designs helicopters like that anymore because it turned out that wasn't really a good place to put them. It's much better to have them sticking out the front of the helicopter closer to the ground where they got a better view of what's going on because the guys in there couldn't see down terribly well. But I still think it's just an awesome helicopter. And the other one, of course, by the way, stumbled onto something interesting. The come on, what's with this thing? Hold on. Oh, sorry, I have to. I wanted to go to jets and I had the wrong thing selected. Okay, here we go. So I noticed that 3 of the models of the P-80 or F-80 Shooting Star that are made are of the exact same paint. It's the exact same airplane. If you notice the 3 Shooting Stars on the right, they're all made by different manufacturers and they're in different scales. But every one of them is the Swagon Dragon. And it's the same airplane, FT-650. And the Sagan Dragon, I'm sorry. And you can't really tell very well, but on the nose, that's a dragon wrapped around the blue pointy stripe. And the airplane was called the Sagan Dragon. And I'm like, why is everybody making this airplane? From what I could gather, it wasn't really historically significant particularly. But my guess is there's just plenty of pictures of it around and models I've already made, so they just did a copycat. Some of the other F-80s have different paint schemes on them. But that's a bit of a cue. Why are you guys all making the same airplane? And it was an active airplane during the war. I mean, it saw a lot of action. But that's Airfix and Czech and who's that other one? I forgot who it is offhand, but Fujimi. But they all picked the same airplane. And the other F-80s, I remember the Monogram kid actually built it, and they used some different ones. Anyway, I didn't want to...
I've been at an air show when all the people who made these kits went and saw them and took pictures of them and decided, okay, this is what we're going to do.
Well, they were all made, but they were all made at different times. I mean, it could just be that, hey, there's some really great source material, or it could be as simple as, hey, that's what they did, let's just copy that. But of course, the F-84s. Now, interesting enough, I didn't find any two F-84 box art that were the same. They're all different. And then, of course, the F-86s. No, plenty of F-86s around. And that thing has just been made forever. It's like the Korean P-51. But we'd already talked about these earlier, so I didn't want to spend a lot of time on them. It was just the difference in the two. No two F-86s are the same, but everybody's making the same P-80. But what I found interesting when I started doing a little research was the prop jobs. Now, hold on, I'm going to turn this camera off because it's a little distracting video. Okay.
Now, in model railroading, that happens sometimes too. They'll make a car kit and it has the same road number on it. Different manufacturers, but they all use the same road number.
Yeah. That's does not shock me. Okay. Now, by the way, AVI models, I realize they're working in a different language. It's the O1-E bird dog, not the OE-1, so they made a mistake in their literature. I decided to look up the bird dog in Korea because I was pretty sure it had seen service in Korea, and it did. It came out shortly after World War II. Basically replaced the Piper Cub. But what I found interesting was it was very hard to find any photographs of it in the Korean War. And I found these two. One of them's an Army officer standing by his at a MASH unit, and the other one was, I believe, a Marine bird dog just out flying around doing his mission. Very few photos of it. But when people think of the Korean War, they always think, obviously, the helicopters or the saber jets, because those are what everybody sees. They don't think of little airplanes like the bird dog, but it was not like... And when they see the bird dog, they think Vietnam. But actually, the bird dog was very active in Korea. And every service, the Army and the Marines both used, and the Air Force. It was an independent Air Force by now. So it was used by a lot of branches of service. And neat little airplane. If I could have a Warbird, that or a T-34 Mentor would be it, because it's basically a Cessna 170 with a militarized cockpit and a bigger engine. But when you think of Korea, you don't really think of the bird dog. And when you think of the bird dog, you don't think of Korea. And I'm like, that's too bad. The Navion, which is basically a civilian airplane. And by the way, the Navion in this picture is Army, not Air Force. But the Army had a bunch of them, and they actually did fly combat missions. Now, one company, it might have been Valome, has a picture of one in the olive drab with rockets under the wings. I don't think they ever had any hard points on them. But they did do spotting missions, so they went up and got shot at. And believe me, I've flown an Avion. It's just a civilian airplane, like a Bonanza, only not as fast. It is not. It's like the bird dog, a little faster than the bird dog, but I mean, it's just like to take that thing and where bullets are whizzing around, take some horns, because you got zero protection. But this one, as you can see, actually did take off from an aircraft carrier. This may actually be MacArthur's airplane. He used it as a sort of a battle taxi. And because the things don't need much runway. Avions are pretty good short field airplanes. And so there's...
They're kind of heavy, aren't they?
They are, and they're built like a tank because they're North American. They built it like they were making a fighter plane. The later ones, the bigger engines are better, but the wing on it, when you use enough flap, the wing on it provides a lot of lift. And I flew with Doc Brennan and his and a couple others, and I was impressed with how quick... I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like it's a stall plane, but it'll get off the ground quicker than a Bonanza. And a Bonanza actually doesn't eat too much runway either. It's got a lot of power. But
and the later ones didn't have the thing in the middle of the windshield, the support in the middle.
Yeah. They got rid of some of the window framing, and but then so there's a kind of the forgotten warbird. Also, a lot of people forget that the T6s, they called them mosquitoes, but they were actually used as forward air controllers, and they did have guns and marking rockets. And they actually got into you see the sabers and bigger. They actually got into the shooting. So the T6 is a legitimate warbird, and I like that they made this one as a Korean. And I found some pictures of a unit operating them, and I was like, there are quite a few of them actually, primarily spotters, but they could mark smoke, they could strafe targets, and the Israelis during one of their wars, they had a bunch of T6 trainers they had to press into combat, and they actually went out and were strafing convoys in T6s, and some of them got shot down because they're not T6 isn't real fast. It trains you to be a fighter. It's not to fly a fighter. It's not a fighter. Then, of course, you got the F-51. You can see I got the wings on the Mustang now. And this is a...
Somebody just said something interesting. They said that Frank, the same person who helped design the Mustang designed the Navion. Didn't the Navion also have a laminar flow wing?
I don't know if it was laminar flow. I can't say yes or no. I know that's why it's got that. It's got that North American tail. You look at that squared off tail, and you see the exact same thing on the Navion. That was kind of a North American trademark, I think. But I don't think it would have a laminar flow wing because I don't think the Navion goes fast enough to take advantage of it. It'd be like area ruling the thing. Yeah, you want to get up around Mach 0.85, that stuff matters, but down at 140 knots, not so much. And of course, because I've been building the Mustang, we've been talking about the F-51s a lot, but generally speaking, they kind of get forgotten. And the other one is the Tiger Cat. People forget that the Grumman Tiger Cat, which didn't quite make it to the war, it was primarily a radar night fighter. That
was a twin engine one, right?
Yeah, Tiger Cat is a twin, and it was also fast as heck. It had those basically.
Oh yeah, that thing had all kinds of power.
They basically said, "Hey, what if we made a twin engine Hellcat?" Which is about what they did. It's even got the same kind of triangular shaped fuselage, that airplane. They decided not to operate them off carriers. That was a bit of a handful, but although they were carrier qualified, but it was problematic. So they gave them to the Marines, and the Marines do what the Marines do. They take what they're given and they make the best of it. And I think it had a little bit of a mixed bag as it's operated. Wasn't that great, but the problem was that it was already passé technology. If the plane had been used as a fighter in the tail end of World War II, I'm sure it would have done quite well with concentrated guns like a P-38 and all that power. It would have basically been a Navy P-38. But they also wanted things that could chase down kamikazes. The one airplane did laminar flow work at the Waffle House. Kiss my grits, Mel. So there he is, kiss my grits. But what happened was, you guys remember the Bearcat, which did not serve in Korea. Believe it or not, the Bearcat was like one of the finest, highest performing single engine fighters, but they never got into combat in World War II because they came out too late. They're actually on their way when the war ended. They were out of inventory before Korea because jets had just taken over. So the Bearcat had an extremely short service life. And but the Tiger Cat stayed around for a while because its size, the ability to have a two-man crew and radar gave it some utility. But these are just kind of the airplanes that people, when you think of Korea, they kind of forget about. And the one I really wanted to talk about, because it's one of those that just gets lost, were the transports. And the transports, I was let me hold on, let me move this up to the top here. I didn't realize quite how many different types of transport aircraft we used in the Korean War. A lot of leftover World War II stuff. Now, I knew that they had the C-119 and the C-54. And, of course, DC-3s or C-47s were still in use. I didn't realize they were also using old C-46 Curtiss Commandos that were left over from World War II that were due for retirement. They were using the old C-82 Packet, which was not a great airplane. C-119 came out of it, so that was a good airplane. But they were using Constellation, C-124s. There's all these transport category airplanes, and I went and almost all of them are kitted. You can find models of virtually all of them, which is good. Although, ironically, I only found 2 kits of an Air Force C-47. Everything else was either World War II or foreign militaries or airliners. But, you know, the Korean War, we always think jets, but the same old lumbering World War II airplanes were being used to haul the beans and the bullets. And I didn't realize that they were still using the old Curtiss Commando, and which on paper is a more capable airplane than the C-47. It's faster, carries more, it's got the big engines with 4-bladed props, but somehow it got retired, and the C-47 just kept plodding along. Not probably because I guess because the C-46s were a little more troublesome. You know, anytime you try to get that much power out of a radial engine, have those complicated systems. The C-82, the Packet, if you remember Flight of the Phoenix, that's Jimmy Stewart was flying a C-82. And they only made a couple of hundred of them. It was grossly underpowered, so that's why they came up with the C-119, which is actually a really good airplane that came out of it. But both of those were used extensively in Korea. In fact, these photos that are underneath the box art are from an Air Command website. They're all taken in Korea. So, and I didn't realize how many airdrops they were doing with these things. Paratroopers and cargo. And the infantry guys were talking about the, C-40 was retired in 68. Well, they lasted longer than I thought they did. I thought they were all out of inventory before then, but I guess not. But the guys are talking about how the airdrops were a lifeline, and these flying boxcars did a lot of airdrops, and they had some pretty impressive photos. It looked like the Normandy invasion, but it was all cargo. But I believe the XC-99, it may have. And these airplanes actually got out to where the shooting was at, so they exposed themselves to real danger. The C-118 and the C-54, basically the DC-6 and the DC-4. What? These guys did not really go out to where the shooting was at if they could avoid it, but they were flying a lot of cargo. Now the C-118, of course, is a more capable airplane. It's bigger, but they're both the same basic platform. And the Troop Command, back in the day of MATS, Military Air Transport Service. And,
they were flying C-46s at Buffalo Airlines up until recently.
Yeah, I don't know where they were finding parts for that thing. And Buffalo, I think, just got an old 737-200. Don't glamorize operations like that, man. They are a lot of work, and it's tough to keep that old equipment flying. And guys like me who love airplanes have a certain love affair with it, but I wouldn't want to have to fly one every day in that kind of weather to make a living. That's, woo.
Yeah, that's rough. And they're not ergonomically designed.
That C-46 you're talking about that hauled the beef out of Bolivia, I'm familiar with that airplane. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the one that some years back, it choked an engine on takeoff and went in and cartwheeled. Actually, I think there's video of it out in the world, and it was a hard thing to watch. But, you got to understand these engines were made on 30s and 40s technology with 30s and 40s metallurgy. They were never intended to last this long. And the Air Force still had problems with them, and they had full maintenance crews and all the spare parts you could ever want. There's a
Ian says Buffalo's 737 is a 300.
Is it 300?
200s were the really noisy turbo jet ones.
Yeah, the 300's the fans. Yeah, so it was the first one with the fans. In fact, Ken, you'll appreciate this. They're the ones that had the flat bottom on the intake. They had to use a Cray supercomputer to run the numbers to create that because they were trying to figure out how not to get all the FOD damage but allow enough air in. And they used a Cray supercomputer. They were so proud of that because you had a bad time on a Cray and it wasn't cheap.
Cray XMP?
I don't know. It would have been
Cray 1, Cray 2?
crayfish.
Which Cray? There's several.
Well, it was the supercomputer.
Okay.
The C-121 we all lovingly know as a Constellation. People tend to forget the Air Force even operated these things, other than as the Sentries. And by the way, some of these were shot down, the spy planes and stuff. Although it looks pretty like they were shot down over international waters. But, the North Koreans, crappy maps. They don't care. They're pirates.
They were flying these as troop transports in Vietnam.
Yeah, well, yes. And they were also still using them as AWACS aircraft. In fact, the Russians...
MAC also?
Yeah, MATS, Military Air Transport Service. MATS.
Yeah.
In fact, the Russians were working on long-range fighters specifically to shoot down the radar versions of these things. And they still have them. They have airplanes, long-range aircraft that are dedicated to go shoot down the AWACS. Because the AWACS aircraft, that's command central. Knock it out and everybody's blind. It is a high value target. And, of course, old Shaky, the C-124 by Douglas. That's, again, people don't normally associate that with the Korean War, but they were there, and actually they're in big numbers. There are a lot of photos of those things lined up, and there's pictures of some of them all blown to pieces. They got hit on the ground by mortars or whatever. I forget it was a 124, but and that photo was taken.
Didn't they have like 2 or 3 of these?
What's that?
These C-124s, didn't they only have one or 2 of these?
Oh no, they had a bunch of them. They were in full production by then. There's a picture of them all out on the flight line, and well, not all of them. There's a few of them, but no, they were. I think they were coming in. I'm not sure what year they came out, but they were coming into the inventory in numbers about this point. Now you'll notice the C-124 on the right, and that photo was taken in Korea. It does not have a weather radar on it. As before they slapped the weather radars on them, which is that nose that it has, gives it that goofy look. But I just think that these are the airplanes that often get overlooked. Man, they were over there. They were actually working really hard. The Berlin airlift, the Korean War. Later on, a lot of them are still in use in Vietnam. A lot of them got wound up in civilian hands and just kept soldiering on. And
what do you mean when the AWACS goes midnight? What does that mean? You mean dark? They don't transmit?
I suppose. Oh, sometimes it goes when it goes midnight. It may be. The AWACS aircraft probably have a limited life left on them all anyway, because there are other ways now. We have so much radar or so much satellite information. Now the the radar on a lot of the fighters is so capable. I mean, with all this data link stuff, the AWACS can be it can feed off of satellites. But you can sit there in your little fighter plane with a cockpit and see where everybody's at, because you're getting that data link, and it can take the radar data from other fighters, ground radar, everything. It's a pretty impressive system, and but the AWACS aircraft are still important, but they're also, like I say, anything with 4 engines is a high value target, and But with the Korean War build, you want to see all. See
what KLS and C says?
What was that?
Max, when I was stationed in then West Germany in 80 to 83, I was in a search radar squadron. Our TPS 43 radar could easily see squad aircraft 200 miles away.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, some of these radars are just amazing. Now, speaking of Korean War models, this is the little 1/72 scale Airfix shooting star I started with, and as you can tell, none of the decals took. So I found some stuff in my stash which is a little off scale, and even some of them are starting to peel off. A glue trooper said he had some 1/72 scale P80 decal, so yeah, go ahead and send them to me, because nothing in my stash fit quite right. But that's as far as I got with it. But this is like my insurance photo for the Korean War build, to make sure at least I've got something to stick in there. I'm not quite done with it, obviously, but boy, did I mess this thing up. The landing gear drifted last night when I put that Gorilla Glue on it, which, by the way, it did a great job of making the landing gear rigid. Unfortunately, it drifted overnight, and I have these just misaligned landing gears. And
it's rigid in the wrong place.
Well, the thing is that you see how the gear itself bowed in real far. And, but, well, I don't know if it's come up on your screen yet or not, but you can see the main landing gear that's facing is at a bit of an there. Now you can probably see it, but
so now it's dog walking.
Yeah, looks okay from the side, I guess. But look how thick those gear doors are. I mean, if the real airplane had gear doors that thick, they'd be about 6 inches, 7 inches thick. So what I would recommend if you really want it to look good is get some stock styrene, trace the parts, and cut them out, or grind these down. One or the other. But those landing gears, they have these tiny little pins that go into the hulls, and they're just so fragile. And boy, I look at this big photo, now I realize all the stuff I have to touch up on this thing.
Chuck says armor-plated landing gear doors.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, somebody was asking.
I got it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
What?
Go ahead, Max.
Oh, I was going to say
email address.
Oh, what's that?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So anyway, I also started just to play around while the stuff was hardening. I started working on that little Navy biplane that I painted the yellow wing for. And it has the kind of tail where you put the vertical stabilizer through the horizontal stabilizer into the fuselage. And I forgot this is a 50-year-old kit and how brittle the plastic had gotten. So here it is. There, you can, you know what, that's not, let me get you a better photo here.
One thing I find really interesting about that messed up gear is the wheel's still straight.
Yeah, because I forced it on at an angle. I shaved the plastic. Okay. So this little 1/72 scale old monogram kit. You, by the way, I used the pink primer and only took one coat of red. Yeah, I was like, well, that worked good. So the vertical stabilizer goes into the horizontal stabilizer and goes in that slot in the tail. Very simple. And I thought I'll make life simple. I'll just put the horizontal stabilizer through the tail first and just seat it in the into the fuselage. And of course, I forgot 50-year-old brittle plastic, and it snapped like a potato chip. The horizontal stabilizers. I had to glue it back together. I mean, not a major operation or anything, just frustrating. But of course, I had to brace the tail to try and make sure that it's relatively level. And great, now look at the photograph. It looks like it's a little lopsided. Good God, these photos, you take it and you put it on the big screen like, ooh, how did I miss that? Because it's so much bigger now. But it's amazing how these little basic simple models, things can just get out of control so easily. The old decals and everything, I don't really have high expectations of the decals. Actually, it's got 2 sets of decals with it, so hopefully one of them will work. But, you're like, oh, this is just going to be a simple little build, and 3 days later, you're still working on it. What happened? And it's happened to all of us. You get the mission creep in there. If I do this...
Yeah, that's why we're all not working in production.
Yeah. But anyway, even though I used all that restore fluid, all the decals disintegrated. So for the P80. So, and I didn't have I was like, I've got 3,000 decals and didn't have the stuff I needed. And I was like, okay, that's the way it goes. But if the glue trooper who had the extra set sends them to me, I'll put them on. And if they don't, I'll probably just order some. And like, how did such a basic little kit turn into such a project? I've been working on this for 3 days, and of course it's all in the painting and everything. But
3 days, like that's a long time
for a kid. Ken, this kit has like 20 parts.
20 parts.
Let's see.
Okay.
A cockpit, a stick, and there's 4, including the pilot. There's 4 parts to the cockpit. 1-piece canopy. That's 5. the top bottom wing. Let's see, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for the fuselage, 11, 12 for the horizontal stabilizer, 13, 14, 15, 16 for the Misawa tanks. The nose gears one piece with the wheel, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20, 24. There's like 28 parts. Okay? 32 if you put the bomb racks on it. It's not that... I mean, you can build this thing in 15 minutes, right? Of course, I painted the cockpit and everything up, and the pilot and everything, because which of course you can't see any of it. But then I figured, it's no big deal. Glue the canopy on, prime it in black, tape off, let it harden, tape off the nose, shoot it in aluminum. It's all going to be fine. Then I snapped the landing gear, which didn't pop out. It snapped off. And okay, now we're having to Gorilla Glue a butt joint and let it harden overnight. And now this and now that. And it just, all of a sudden it starts, becoming a and little things, they break, but what really held it up was the decals, so this should have been a 1 day, maybe a 2 day build, and I'm not even done with it until I get the rest of the decals. So, it's one of those, when I finally get some decals, put them on, take a couple of pictures, and put it on the back of the shelf. What I should have done to speed things up was rip the gears off and put it on the stand.
Airplane on a stick.
Airplane on a stick. And by the way,
28. Sir James says 28 parts. That's about how many kits I'm working on at this time.
Yeah. I got about 12 open kits, I guess. But the one thing that I do though is that the Tamiya Mustang actually comes with a big stand and a bunch of parts that tells you if you're going to put it on the stand, build it this way. And it comes with parts just for if you're going to put it on the stand. You don't have to build a landing gear. It comes with an already done gear bay door that you just drop into place. And I thought, well, that's nice, but I put a lot of work in that cockpit. I want to pose it on the ground with the cockpit open. And there's a bunch of stuff I didn't do to it. I did with the rudder, put all those metal rods in and all those tiny little flanges and hinges so the rudder moves, and I was like, what do I care? This is a display model. I'm not going to be positioning stuff, so I just glued the elevators, ailerons, and flaps into place because that's the way it's going to sit on the shelf. And I lost my magnets.
It's when you're flying it around your room. You want to turn the rudder so it's like a real thing,
Right.
And what you have to drink before you got on the live stream tonight?
What's that?
Tell me you've never taken one of your model airplanes and flown it around the room after you were done with it.
Please, I think I did that yesterday. Now that I'm not allowed near the big ones, now that I'm not allowed near the real ones anymore, it's the, Hey, you guys want to know something? Let me tell you a little something. I got to tell you something. You're going to learn something today. I love you, which by you I mean tacos. I saw on the news today that there's massive thunderstorms in the Midwest that are heading towards the East Coast, and that next week's going to be all kinds of horrible weather up and down the East Coast. And you know what?
You're not flying it.
I didn't care. Glad I'm not flying up there. I don't watch the Weather Channel. I'm not on Flickr looking for trips that open up.
That would be hilarious.
What?
That would be great.
I think he heard that one.
No, he's ignoring us.
Now what?
I said to Dad, how much would you like to bet that this week, since he's not flying, he's out in the Tarbis and lightning hits him?
No. Thanks. Now I'm going to be worried about that.
Ironic, wouldn't it?
Yeah. No, Ken, ironic is not the word I would use.
What word would you use?
evil, wrong, not fair. Most unclean.
I was expecting something a little more sophisticated than that.
Finally caught him, Ken.
My 6-year-old used to say, "That's not fair."
Yeah.
Well,
used to it.
as Clint Eastwood said it Unforgiven, fair's got nothing to do with it. Well, the sleep late and wear sweats. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm wearing sweats as we speak. Technically athletic pants, but because they don't have the bottom, but you know they have the zipper, so you don't have to take your shoes off to put them on. I've already practiced.
Bill Tate says, "Wasn't that an episode of the Twilight Zone?"
The first thing I got to start doing to show every the world I retired is wearing my pants up above my navel.
Oh, because that doesn't look cool.
Yeah, define cool, Ken. One man's cool, you know. The other man's ha ha.
Does that mean your cuffs are up above your ankles?
Only want to sit down.
You didn't turn your cap in yet, did you?
What?
You
No, he bought that. He keeps that.
Cap in, did you?
I'm sorry. You turned what in?
Your captain's hat.
We don't. JetBlue doesn't wear captain's hats.
Oh, but I thought you had a picture of yourself with one.
That was when I was at US Air Express, Mesa.
You still have that?
I got 2 of them out in the Tarbis.
You could wear that with shorts when you go down to the Publix to go shopping.
You know, I'm a hard man to embarrass, but I do have my limits. Black socks and sandals? No. Although I do get the mail in my slippers.
We need to get a T-shirt that says Captain Max on the back.
Just read that birthday wardrobe.
Let me ask you a question. Now that you're really, officially retired and stuff, when we do the live stream from now on, do we have to stand up and say, "Oh, Captain, my Captain," or
Well, you keep the title for life.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go.
So the answer is yes.
It's like Emperor.
It's like Emperor or President or Judge. Okay. Yeah. The title is for life.
Convicted felon.
Yep.
Same thing.
Well, I don't know, Steve.
The next thing Max will be flying is a 3D printed P-38.
Well, Ken, things could scarcely end up much worse than last time.
Just demand they call you Captain at McDonald's.
Captain of the Mackie D's. Captain Big Mac. Or they can just... Nope, I'm not going to wear the hat nor use the title of captain when I'm on Ken's boat, because when we're on the boat, Ken's the captain.
I do have a captain's hat.
I have no doubt you sleep in it.
I do not.
KLS&C says retired. Twice the free time at half the pay. And Natasha says it's Captain Mad Max.
There we go.
Like Dennis said, pronounce it Capitan. Oh, mon Capitan.
Oh.
You'd be there, probably the Fuhrer, and then they kill the live stream.
One thing that they don't call airline captains is Captain Crunch.
Robert says, now you can tell all your stories beginning with, there I was.
There I was, 30,000 feet, flat on my back, air medals dangling in my face.
James says, flying a low pass inverted, and Ken will yell, pull!
Yeah, Ken, that's not going away anytime soon. At the RC field, I'm an ace.
Tom Fox says, Ken, quote, look at me, I'm the captain now, unquote.
I am the captain now. At the RC field, I'm an ace. I have 5 kills to my credit.
KLCC says Max went on the boat. It will be Admiral Max Scrooby and the captain.
I was thinking Commodore, but by the way, I don't know if you guys heard. What?
Fred says, it's his name at Retired Army. You keep the title for life. I've tried to get my wife to refer to me as Colonel, but her response is, that's what your next wife can call you.
I guess you guys heard, maybe you haven't seen the news today, but there was another military/airliner near me at D.C., at Reagan.
With a helicopter?
No, this time it was a bunch of T-38s. 350 knots and 800 feet, they went streaking past the airport while I think it was an American Airlines airliner was climbing out. And somebody somehow, what it was is they were doing a flyover for a funeral at Arlington. Well, I don't know if it was for a funeral, but it was at Arlington.
And they almost caused one.
You really. And there's you can go out on Radar 24 and see it. They were not too far apart. The T-38, now I've heard the thing showed one, but I understand it was a flight of them. So I don't know. I haven't really dug into it. But I will guarantee you right now, somebody's on the carpet doing a carpet dance, especially in light of heightened sensitivity. But I saw that and I'm like, I mean, they were over the river. I mean, that's close. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I think I saved
another reason to be glad that you're sitting in the chair you're in now.
No kidding. You know what? I think I might have saved a screen grab from it. Let me look real quick.
You notice how they changed the subject?
What?
I did.
Why? I'm not scared of no subject. What, change the subject from what?
You.
We got more exciting things to talk about. Did I not say
No,
that?
we don't.
Let me see.
We have the most fun when we're picking on you.
Oh, I don't mind that. Okay. Did I not save? I thought I saved the picture.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that airspace. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's busy airspace, but still, Ken, in light of everything that's happened, that's just too new.
Were they under different controllers?
They gone out of Langley, which isn't far away, and not when you're flying a T-38. They were doing 350 knots at like 800 feet. Let me just see if I can find the article real quick.
Aren't you supposed to say below 100? No, it's below 200 when you're below 10,000 feet.
It doesn't apply to all aircraft. Here it is. Now there's the picture right there. Okay, hang on. Copy image.
Brett says he's waiting for a report of Godzilla appearing in the DC traffic pattern.
I tell you what.
That's about all it's missing.
Now you guys are going to love this. Why isn't that cropping? I'm telling this thing to crop.
Oh, no, Bill. Our retirement roast would be much better than this.
Oh, yes. You got to come to that. I've got stories I've never told.
I think my mouse just crapped. What's going on here? I think my mouse may be dying. Okay. File. Save as. JPEG. BC. 189. Save. Close that. Okay, go here. Plus. Image. Browse. D189.
Just love listening to Max think.
Well, you know, it moves at the pace it moves. Okay, so now you have the image will populate.
Change the battery.
No, it may be that. I may be losing the batteries in my...
Thanks, salvaged. Salvaged.
It should be popping up here any sec. There we go.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
Hold on, I'm going to magnify it for you. But you can tell that's way closer than it ought to have been. Actually, the airliner got a TCAS resolution advisory that they had to respond to. So when that thing starts chirping, you know, monitor vertical speed, descend, climb, and clear of conflict. And they tell you, stuff works too. But, okay, there's no nice way to say this. That should damn well never have happened. And
where's Arlington? I don't even see it.
Arlington's just north to the left of the airport. It would be on the top left of the screen, up above the top left of the screen. And not far. It's very close to the airport. If you go north past the airport, you're over the Pentagon. And you go right past that and hang a left on the river, and you're over Arlington. I used to fly around it all the time. And I don't know I don't know who's responsible for what happened. If it was a lack of coordination between the FAA and the military, or if now I know the airliner wasn't out of place because he's taken off of runway 19. He's exactly where he's supposed to be. The jets, I don't know. They may have been told to take Route 4. And if they are, judging by that diagram, they were a little too far to the west. Or they, and I don't know how familiar the guys were with the local area. But in light of everything that's happened, I just can't believe that somebody dropped the ball, given that everything in aviation, especially in the DC area, is under such a magnifying glass right now. I mean, it's under a microscope. And I don't know how this happened. I guarantee you there are a lot of people with brass on their shoulders and FAA badges and ties that are digging into it as we speak. A lot of crap has been making the news about the airlines that isn't really worth making it, because it's just everything that happens to airlines now is heightened sensitivity. So, nonsense is making articles in the paper, but this was a credible, legitimate story. And somebody's going to be...
It's way far to the east and around.
Yeah, the problem is what you can't see here is that straight off the airport, straight north of the airport, we're talking about just about a mile, is P-56 prohibited area. And nobody's allowed in there except the presidential helicopter. And a T-38 going 350 knots does not turn on a dime. I don't know what these guys' mission briefing was. So I don't have anything to offer as to how it happened, because I don't know what happened, who did what. All I know is something went wrong and somebody's going to be explaining it. And my guess would be it'll be the lowest ranking guy they can pin it on.
Someone in the T-38 is grounded and cleaning the trains.
Very well could end up being not far off of that. My guess, and if I know some of the glue troopers out here were military pilots, so they'll know more about it than I will. But my guess would be that the phone's going to ring to the squadron commander, and it's going to flow downhill from there. And whoever gave the briefing and whoever was in charge of the flight are probably the guys that it's going to weigh on the most, would be my guess. And one thing it'll be, was it planned this way, or you were not where you were supposed to be? And if it was planned this way, why was it planned this way? And why didn't DC know you were coming? And, just that kind of stuff. But I'm sure they'll pin it on the flight lead. I mean, he's probably the lowest ranking guy, and he was on the scene, and he technically is responsible. I mean, look, if I did something stupid when I was flying the airliner, I'm the captain. The movie Strategic Air Command, Frank Lovejoy's character, General Hawk, said it best when Jimmy Stewart has the crash up in Greenland, and he's barking at him afterwards. He goes, "You're the aircraft commander. You're responsible even if a wing falls off, especially if a wing falls off." And that's it. You put on those 4 stripes, or you pin on the flight lead, boom. That weight's on your shoulder. And
JM says DCA is supposed to close their airspace during the missing man.
So, it could be as simple, permanent latrine orderly. I know that one, Garfield. And I'm the PLO, the permanent latrine orderly.
Latrine orderly.
Private Dale Stockdale. Private Stockdale. And Infantry. God, I love that movie. If you guys were talking about a movie with Andy Griffith, his breakout film called No Time for Sergeants.
We're off on a tangent.
That's what you come here for, Ken. It's like Canada.
It took an hour and 50 minutes to get here.
Hey Ken, it's like
really
it's like that meme one of the Canadians sent me where it shows the whole neighborhood snowed in. He says, come for the weather, stay because your car won't start. I would not want to be in that guy's shoes right now. Don't forget, the B-25 that flew into the Empire State Building did it because he misidentified one ground reference. He thought Welfare Island was Manhattan and turned left then into Manhattan instead of left over New Jersey. Because time goes, crap moves quick from an airplane. The guy may have missed a turn, or maybe I don't think that's where they would have routed him. He could have gotten distracted for a second. And a T-38, Ron Rogers, if you guys haven't watched his channel, he's a retired United captain and a former Air Force pilot. He just basically tells all of his old war stories. Great guy. I've emailed him. He's emailed me back. He's a really great guy. And Ron was talking about flying the T-38. And I've seen other guys, and I've talked to a lot of guys that have flown the thing. I never have. But it is a handful of airplane. It's an incredible machine. What it can do. And most of the guys who fly it just love it. But it's kind of like petting a cobra. It's super cool, but you got to watch yourself. And they lost one out, was it Meridian not long ago in the traffic pattern. They just got behind the power curve, and the thing got a sink rate going they couldn't get out of. They just flew into the ground.
It's got small wings.
Yeah, it's not a lot of wing on that thing. It'll move like a scared cat. And by Air Force standards, it's cheap to operate.
And I got to fly a simulator at Randolph, and that sucker will roll.
Oh, yeah. It'll do like 2 rolls a second, like 720 a second or something like that. That's one reason the Thunderbirds use them for so long. One pilot was... I was watching one of the, I think it's Mover and Gronke show, and he went out and got recurrent in the... he went back into flying in the military and the reserves. And they had to check him out at T-38, and it shows him in there. And this is an experienced, like, F-18, F-16 pilot. And he was, you could tell he was working hard because it's a very manual airplane. And his other buddy was saying that he'd flown the F-18, and when he went to that unit to check out in the T-38, he thought it'd be a breeze. And he goes, it was way harder to fly than the F-18. Because it doesn't have any automated systems. There's no flight control computers in it and stuff like you have in an F-18. A lot of the more modern fighter jets, you point the stick a certain way. Like the Airbus, you just point and go. And they've got all kinds of protections built in. None of that's in a 38. That's a 1950s design. And they were getting people ready to fly F-100s. An airplane that ate pilots for lunch. And so it had to be that way by design. And North American... when they built it, I think they originally built it as a fighter. It was later turned into a trainer. And they built it on their own dime, the NA-156. And it turned out to be a clever little airplane. It and the A-4 Skyhawk are two of the most clever little airplanes that come out of the 50s. And...
Well, Rodriguez says, and now it begins. Max is starting to tell his stories. There I was.
Yeah. Yeah, the ultimate exam to get into trouble with the T-38 with Elliot C. and with Bass and C in it. That's right. And it was Charlie Bass and Elliot C. These are astronauts. Astronauts, man. These guys know how to fly military jets. And they were going to St. Louis to look at the Gemini capsule they were supposed to train in. And they were shooting I think it was a marginal VFR approach. I think Cernan might have been in the one behind him. I believe he went around. But... I think they were scud hunting, like trying to break out, trying to find the runway. They wound up hitting the building. And
Oops.
And my guess is they probably saw the building, jammed the fire. I'm guessing they goosed the power and tried to get out, but that airplane just doesn't recover that quick. Like you say, Ken, it doesn't have a lot of wing on it. Or maybe it popped out and maybe they didn't have a chance to initiate recovery. I don't know.
That will ruin your day.
Well, one of my FOs said that airplane terrified him in UPT, undergraduate pilot training. And a lot of guys love it. I mean, because it's a Ferrari. But he said at one of them he got a sink rate going, so he poured the power to it, lit the burners, and the plane kept sinking. So he's got, and you can't pull the nose up too much. That thing flies an angle of attack. What?
Go ahead, Steve.
John Ashley Smith says, "Wow, this inaugural celebrating retirement live stream flew by, unintended." LOL.
But when you're a student pilot, they have guys at a box at the end of the runway that grade your approaches and landings, and like they do on the carriers. And he managed to get the thing flying again and roar out of there, but it was a pretty near run thing. He just got too much sink rate going, and it snakes up. You got to constantly watch the angle of attack indicator and the vertical speed. Anyway, when he landed, got back, goes in, checks his grades, and it said BBTF, and he's like, "What the heck kind of grade is BBTF?" And he said, "Oh, it stands for brought box to feet." Because when that happened, everybody in the box stood up expecting to see a crash. They were getting ready to run for cover. I don't like you do. Yeah, congratulations! They invented a new grade just for you.
Oh, that's got to be embarrassing.
He got through it, but the thing is that all the guys I know have flown the airplane for the most part. They just loved it, but it's not the kind of. I mean, it can only stay up about 2 hours on internal fuel. It doesn't have a lot of range. It doesn't have long legs. It's a trainer. But my understanding is they just go, look, it's a really amazing airplane, but you have got to watch it like a hawk. You just can't take your eye off of it. And that one that crashed in Meridian, everything was under control. It was a Japanese student with an American instructor in the back, and they've got the voice recorder. And they're very calm. And the guy just, if I understand, I remember watching the video on it. It's out there if you want to watch it. But they overshot the center line, and the Japanese student starts tugging on the stick to bring it back around. And the instructor's talking him through it, and he's goosing the power and everything. You see the little vertical speed and the angle of attack indicator and vertical speed indicator doing this, and then all of a sudden, they assume the instructor got distracted by something, and the student lets the airplane lose a little energy, and the vertical speed indicator just goes down like that, and they catch it, goes around, go around, go around. They pour the power too late. They're like 600 or 800 feet, coming down at 2,000 feet a minute. There just wasn't time for that thing to get enough steam to fly again, and it just flew into the ground. And he couldn't punch out because it doesn't have 0 seats. That thing will come down faster than the ejection seat can go up. That's how Yeager got burned when he punched out of that 104. He was talking about it. He goes, the airplane was coming down so fast that when he ejected, instead of the seat going up, it just kind of hovered and the airplane fell up from under him. So he and the ejection seat are kind of sitting still in space, which is why when he separated, it didn't fly away from him like it was supposed to. So, anyway. Well, guys, it's 9 o'clock. I have some things I have to go do, so we're going to have to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Guys, if you want to say your adioses, we'll call it a night. And a lot of fun. I hope you had some fun.
Well, good night, guys. Thanks for tuning in as usual, and hope you enjoyed the first post-retirement Max's Models video. And we'll come back next week and try to do it again. Thanks for watching.
And Fran and Trey
cool.
and Ian.
We actually get to save retirement, and he doesn't yell at us for it.
Well, we'll give him other things to yell at us for.
That's true.
I'm not going to waste my yells on that.
But anybody in the... yeah, we'll talk about this later. Anyway, thanks for coming. Steve and I will talk about this later. So thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, wait till I'm off the phone. You to talk about me behind my back, Ken. I can't be listening. So
what fun would that be?
Okay.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
What's he talking about? Okay, guys, we gotta go. All right, bye.
All right, guys. Thanks for everything. I hope you had a little bit of fun tonight. Hopefully, we will be talking at you next Saturday night. Take care of yourselves, and as always, model on.
We always let him get the last line.
Hang on. Well, it's
Right,
my
it is
show.
his channel.
And
That's
it's my
true.
show, and I'll whine if I wanna. Okay, hold on. I'm looking for the button. You're still on the air. Hold, shush. Shush, 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 shush.
Push
Zip
the
it.
button, Max.
I'm pushing the button. God dang it. There it is.